So yeah, welcome everybody to sequence practice number 3 with our special guest today, Bilal. How do I pronounce your last name, man?
Trout.
Badrawi?
Death to fluff.
Death to fluff. There you go, man. There you go. As everybody knows, sequence practice is our bi-weekly event where we take submissions from you, sales professionals, people out there killing it and crushing their quotas. And we give our best advice, our opinions on what we think would make you get that little bit of better response. So why we do this? Because Bilal, I can't speak for you, but I can tell you for myself, I absolutely hate that the industry average response rate is 1% to cold outreach emails, and I know you have some ideas of why that is. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen now and get you. Going to ask Bilal to let's introduce yourself, bud.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, Jeff. And I love this, man. Geeking out on outbound. This is like the best hour I can spend right now. This is my superpower. It's like the one thing I'm good at. It's like, don't ask me about the stock market or cooking. I'm not that guy, but like outbound, I got it. But yeah, I mean, the 1% response rate, industry average. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I never got proper training on outbounding. I don't know for the rest of the people here. Maybe you guys can say if you did, you're the exception, not the norm. I think the significant vast majority of sellers never get proper sales training. We get product training.
Yep.
Maybe persona training. Maybe. Very rarely sales training, which is kind of odd. You think like you'd want to train on what your job is. Yeah. But sales is a trade skill, right? It's like carpentry. Like if you want to become a master carpenter, you don't pick up Carpentry for Dummies. No. You go study under a master carpenter. And they would teach you their method and practices until you became an expert and you can go out and apply that same trade skill. So sales is the same way. You have to learn it through others. And it took me 10 years to finally figure out why everything I was doing for the past 10 years was wrong.
It does. It's funny when that light bulb moment comes on and you're like, oh wait, why wasn't I taught this before? One thing you mentioned, so you definitely get some product training, get some other training, but I do know that you get a lot of process training whereby do what we say you're supposed to do. But there is that sales skills is actually lacking, right? The soft skills, the listening skills. You don't really get a lot of that in organizations, do you?
You don't. Like I can count on two hands the amount of times I probably got sales coaching in the 7 startups that I've been a part of. Like very rarely did anybody bother to like listen to my calls and give me actual coaching on what I was saying and how I was saying it, why I was saying it the way I was. It just didn't happen. It was all results based. Are you hitting quota? Cool.
Right.
You're not hitting quota? Come on, man. Make, more dials, more emails, more whatever.
Just smile and dial, buddy. Wow, that's right.
It was that easy.
Yeah, it's that easy. Right. It's that easy. Well, luckily, clearly you figured it out, and like there is a formula, but it's not smile and dial. And so why don't we show people today some of the things that we've learned along the way of how to kind of improve their sales sequences. So yeah, thanks again for joining me, man. It's great to have you here. So let's kick this off with our first submission of the day. So this is a technology company from New York. What they're doing is cutting the time it takes for salespeople to get insights on their prospects. So this particular sequence is in the prospecting stage. The goal is to book a demo. It's a 3-touch sequence that goes out to competitive brands, so fashion, beauty, electronics, home, that kind of stuff. And they're looking at about a 6 to 7% reply rate right now, and a 2% book demo rate. So with that said, without further ado, let's take a look. So Bilal, do you want to take a second to take a look at that?
Yeah, let's peruse it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So what's your first thoughts, man?
Um, it's you know it's the typical pattern, the typical beat.
Yeah.
Uh, just that opening paragraph, unfortunately, just screams, "I want to sell you something. I
Right.
hope you're staying well. I want to take a moment to say we really love what you do. Would love to connect." You already used the word love twice in the second sentence.
Lots of love.
It's a lot of love. A little bit too much love for somebody talking to me for the first time of my life. Just like, look, I don't even know who the hell you are. Why are you saying the word love so many times? You're suspect, right? But that's what we do as salespeople. We get so hyped up. We throw a lot of love thinking that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
2020 might be an unpredictable year. Yeah. So they tell me. Uh, so I think the problem is the juice, the good part of this email is way down buried in the third paragraph. Took me a while to get there, but this idea about track my competitors' ads
Yeah.
sounds great. That
Yeah.
sounds pretty useful. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever say, "No, I don't care what my competitors do." I mean, it'd be interesting to know what they're doing.
Right.
I wonder if there's an easier way to show that than all of this verbiage. Like, could this company actually take their competitor's ad and actually just put that right dead in the middle of the email and just be like, here's your competitor's ad. Have you seen this one yet?
Right.
And do you know how it's performing?
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought too. I looked at that and went, yeah, if you take it out of the context of the way that they described the solution, it's all about the solution, but there's that juice in there. Like you said, it's that competitor's ads. That's really the thing,
Yeah.
right? That's something that really gets you, wow, that's interesting and breaks the mold of the standard day-to-day outbound.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want somebody helping them see their competitors' ads? Because there's enough to do in the day to keep you busy that you're not going to be able to check your competitors' ads, as much as you'd like. But if your competitor had a really well performing ad,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you'd want to know about it.
Oh yeah,
No matter what
100%.
job you're in. So yeah, I feel like this email could probably be 3 sentences instead of 3 paragraphs and still hit home pretty hard. Just getting straight to the point of like, when's the last time you checked your competitors' ads? Here's their top performing one. What do you think of insights like this? And that could literally be the email.
Right. And that right there, you speak to it, is that the CTA hears about that typical call, right? It's asking for the call. But what you just said is basically, what do you think? It's basically, what do you think,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
inspiring that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very rare also you get a product that you can literally show in a screenshot what it does or how it works that simply. But
Yeah.
yeah, if you're the exception, not the norm like this, and you have a product that you can literally show in one by just showing like what your product actually does,
Yeah.
go for it. That should
Right.
always be your go-to because that's not always the case. Very, very few times can you do that.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. What do you think of the subject line?
It's fine. I mean, like it's short at least, so they didn't try to go for something too fancy. I mean, if you wanted to be really nitpicky, I think it's better to actually name the competitor. I'd put like competitor, company name, seller company. That'd be really interesting because if I work at Adidas and you send me like, Nike, Adidas in your name, I'd be like, what's this about? Because it's kind of a word play of like, well, I know that first company, that's my competitor. I know that second company, that's where I work. What's this third company about?
Right. How does this fit in? And then that's the curiosity that you solve for that curiosity in the email, and you've got yourself a very interested person, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking at a couple things that I see in here. A couple kind of verbiage that I see pretty regularly is, how can we supplement your marketing strategy? So it's assuming that, are they seeking a supplement to their marketing strategy? Is this something that they want, right? It's kind of assuming that these people are already looking for it. So this type of verbiage might work better as kind of like a follow-up to something where they're actively asking about something. but not necessarily for a cold outreach where you're almost doing what my daughter does. So I have a 4-year-old daughter. We were talking about it.
Yeah.
She just kind of starts me in the middle of a conversation that I don't even understand I'm having. you know, she'll walk up to a server at a restaurant and be like, "Did you know what my friend Leah and Tias do?" Blah 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 blah. What?
Yeah, I love
Don't
that.
be my 4-year-old daughter. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. That's a great example. I love that.
Right on, right on. All right. Well, let's go to the next one. So this is step 2. This is day 3. So it's a wait 2 day step, and you've got this.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a better email, undoubtedly. I love the word snoop. How often do you get to write the word snoop in your cold emails? Whenever you get to use a word that's super unusual and not in the normal language,
Yeah.
man, I'd go for that all day, every day. This is a much better email, but again, I wonder if you even need this opening sentence at all. How cool this, I mean, we always like trim the fat, right? Like, let's trim the fat.
Yeah.
We got another, I'm happy and open to chat, and wondering if you'd be open. I don't know how many times the word open appears, but that's at least twice there. Again, it's like, you're a little too loving, you're a little too open with me. I don't know who you are. Yeah. There's a lot of love and openness and caring here for a stranger emailing a stranger. So I think that's just common. Again, we get into that sales mode and we start using words like that we normally wouldn't say otherwise. But imagine if this email is literally just like the subject line was the word snoop,
Yeah.
and the opening line was like, snoop on competitors, influencer, and ad campaigns. And that was the opening sentence. I think people would be really curious to see why a company, what exactly a company could do to help them snoop like that.
Right.
It's such a weird email to get. I mean, how many cold emails have the subject line snoop? You know what I mean?
No, none. Like
None. I don't think any.
I haven't seen it once. Oh, that's awesome. So, what about so what would you say is the one thing then you would change on this email? You're saying the subject line, and then I guess combine that with
Yeah, I would just get straight to the point. I was wondering if you'd be open for a quick thing. They know how to respond to emails. You don't need to ask people if they'd be wondering. Don't wander. No, no wandering. Okay, be decisive. Don't wonder for people, and don't ask them if they're wondering. There's really no reason to talk about advanced analytics. That's a buzzword. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But these 3 super features. What if this email just opened up with literally snoop on competitors, influencer, and ad campaigns, and get monthly reports on them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just a question mark, like turn these bullet points into question marks. Like, what would you do if you could snoop on your competitors, influencer, and ad campaigns and get in-depth analytics on how they're performing? Question mark. Because I think when we make statements and we do bullet points, it sounds really nice in our heads.
Yeah.
But the person reading on the other side has no clue who the hell you are, why the hell you're emailing them.
Right.
And you want to, this is something that took me a really long time to learn, Jeff.
Yeah.
I kept forgetting that the person on the other side is reading this email in their head using their internal voice, right? Like that voice in your head that you have.
Right.
And if I'm talking to that voice in their head, it's kind of like a little bit of psychology. If I talk to the voice in somebody else's head, like I'm giving them a conversation to have in their head, that's a win. Very few sellers ever achieve an email that causes somebody to have a conversation in their head, because oftentimes we're talking based on our own contextual understanding of our product or service instead of trying to spark a conversation in our reader's head. So we make bullet point statements because we know our product features. So we call them super features, and we make a nice little bullet point list.
Yeah.
They have no clue what our product does, what it is, what it's called. They've never heard of it in their lives.
Right.
What if we ask them that question? Instead of turning our features into a bullet point list, we turn our features into a question. What would you do if you could snoop? What would change in your world if you had in-depth analytics? You know, those sort of questions. And then you're making the reader actually answer them in their head. And that was your cold email, right? Now you're just sparking curiosity.
No, so I like that. I like that. And it actually makes me think of something. I'd love your opinion on this. I've got my own, but I want to hear yours. Bullets themselves, what do you think of presenting multiple ideas in an email?
Usually I avoid it because I'm very much in that camp of like fit it on a mobile screen. So like if I've got 3 super features, I'm not going to put all 3 in an email because I'm firing too many shots at once. I'll do one email with one email with another, and an email with a third. I'm fine with doing 3 touches that way.
Right.
And hopefully stacking my strongest feature in the later stages, not in the early stages, as I warm the person up and they notice that, oh, this person's like emailing me. They're actually emailing me pretty interesting questions. And this latest one is probably the most interesting one. Because my highest response touch in any cold sequence that I've ever done is usually touch 4 to 7.
Right.
Usually somewhere between 4 and 7 touches when I get my highest response rate. And that's typically where brand recognition occurs. So there's some loose psychology on this that says you have to do a minimum of 7 references for somebody to actually form brand recognition in their brain. So if I tell you about a company you've never heard of today, I have to say it 6 more times before you go, I think I've heard of that before. And I'm like, yeah, because I've been saying it for like 7 times.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, that brings up another thing is that, so some people like to do a lot of touches at the beginning. So in the first week, you're doing like 5, 6 touches, and then they kind of taper off. And then there's others that advocate doing what I've been called the crazy X. I've heard it's called the crazy X, where you're like starting off slow and then you're getting crazier at the end. Do you have a preference?
No, and I've done both and seen both work. I think it actually more matters on the copy than it actually does the sequence. Because if you send bad copy, whether you stack it late or stack it early, it's bad copy. And the person is just going to be annoyed either way. But when you write great copy, you will find success both ways.
Yeah.
Because it's really about the message you're sending. And again, if you can get that conversation, because the reader's reading it in their internal voice in their head, they're not saying it out loud. And if you ask them a question instead of make a statement, you're prompting their voice in their head to respond. And if you can start if your cold email literally makes a random stranger that you've never met have a conversation in their head about it, you have won. You have won the battlefield. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's a huge win.
Well, again, like you were saying, is that if you're tapping into their internal dialogue and stimulating their conversation and making that further along, then you're doing a much better job than trying to interrupt their internal dialogue with what you're saying.
That's right. That's right.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll do one more on this one, and then we'll do the recap. It's got one more email on this sequence. Do you see it there, Boa?
Yeah. No. There it is. Okay, I got it.
Okay. Step 3, day 6. So it's a few days after that second one.
Yeah, you've definitely highlighted some of the key things. I mean, I like, so I'm a big fan of this. Sometimes it's a very good strategy, and this is to, the 14 participants we have on the call. This is kind of advanced stuff, but like there's actually a really great strategy to emailing the wrong person who is maybe 1 to 2 degrees away from the right person. So let's say I want the CFO. I'm going to purposefully email the controller, knowing that the controller is not the right person. And I'm actually going to say that in my email. Like, normally I speak with CFOs, but I wanted to email you first because, and you're going to say why? Because you're trying to get a little bit of information from them. what ends up happening if you run that sequence the right way, they'll say, well, actually it's so-and-so's job. And then you're going to take that exact email, you're going to add so-and-so and remove the other person. And it's going to be a continuing thread to be like, they told me to email you that you would be the right person. I hope they got that right.
Right.
The reason why, and you go straight into it and you create this web of influence because it's like, well, yeah, that is my job. I do own that. So it's a good thing you emailed me about it.
Yeah.
It's not an easy strategy to pull off. So you don't do it haphazardly, because if you do it haphazardly, you're going to piss off the controller and the CFO.
Yeah.
But believe me, it works more often than it doesn't, especially when you're upfront about the fact that I know you're the wrong person, but you're in the sphere of the right place where I need to be.
Right.
Like, I know you're not the CFO, but I think you can probably help me with this, because I know you probably report to the CFO or you're familiar with the finances.
Right.
You just go straight into it. So I like that they said this part here about, I want to make sure I'm reaching out to the right contact. I think there's probably a better way to say that, to be like, I've been emailing you and I have the feeling you might not be the right contact. Do you recommend someone else that I should be emailing? And put it as a question,
Right.
instead of kind of as a statement of like, just wanted to make sure we're reaching the right contact.
Yeah, and me personally, I'm not really into the word contacts in this context. That's a weird thing to say, but I'd rather say, are you the right person? You know, because contacts makes it sound like you're writing a list of contacts that you're trying to sell to. If that makes sense.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Yep.
What's interesting is that, so you were on sequence practice number 1, and if you can recall, we had Sierra. We did a sequence breakdown with her.
Oh, hers was great. Yeah, I remember it. Hers was amazing.
Yeah, and so she actually sent us back a video kind of describing her experience. It was on our webinar with Sales Hacker yesterday, so you should be able to see the recording soon. But she actually mentions in the webinar that she applied what we said. So using this approach that you just described, applied what she said, what we said, and basically she used to email somebody as soon as she gets the referral, right? But she applied our recommendations of calling right after, okay? And she was mentioning that the first time she did it, she had a 20-minute conversation with her prospect, moved the deal along. I believe she said she closed it. If not, it was at least close to close. So just on that one little change, where instead of waiting an hour doing an email, she did the cold call right away. She used that approach that you're talking about there and got a deal.
Awesome.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
it works. It works. And people who are in the wrong position but near the right role will respond very well if you're upfront about that and you're just telling them the reason why, and you give them that reason why. Right. Because we are innately helpful, right? So back to the psychology of all this, why does it work? Because we want to be helpful. Like, nobody likes to wake up and say, I'm an unhelpful bad person, right? We like to think of ourselves as good people that are helpful. So when somebody comes to us looking to help, if I'd be like, hey, I'm lost, I believe I'm near where I'm supposed to be. I put in the effort to figure out where I am so far, but I just need a little bit of help, getting to where I'm supposed to be. The significant vast majority of people would help that person. So like, hey, yeah, you're putting in an effort here. You're just slightly off. And you're slightly off. You're just one block away. Right. So you want to create that kind of a feeling. We're already conditioned as people to respond to that. And I think this email could get that with a few tweaks. And you've highlighted the right stuff here, Jeff. It's the same subject line again, boring, change it. Yeah. Hope you're well, don't need it. Asking for a pilot in the same email, you're asking if you're reaching out to the right contact. That's not, yeah, that's competing interests right there.
Yeah.
And then, please let me know if the timing is not right. And any feedback or insights, again, you're asking for 2 things there. Is the timing right or not? Do you want to reconnect later or not? Are there any feedbacks or next steps? Too many things. Yeah. What is it? What do you want? What do you want
in these few sentences, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, as you pointed out, there's several good things in here. They're just kind of grabbed from other emails and put into one, right? Like, if you took each of these concepts and built an email around each of them, then you'd actually have some pretty good outreach here.
Yeah, I think you would. If they changed an opening line to be like, I realize you might not be the person who handles advertising and then would be interested in competitive ads. Who do you recommend I contact regarding that? That would be an interesting opening. And then be like, I also write, it may just be that the timing is not right. So just, feel free to correct me
Right.
or something like that. And I get you, they probably get some responses that way, especially since it's step 3, day 6.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so I'm actually looking at this and I'm thinking, maybe they're able to get some response in 3 emails, but I feel like there should be more touches to this
Oh,
and
for sure.
different
For sure.
ones, right? I feel like there's a lot to this story that you're just not telling in three short emails, and that it deserves, I guess, more space to, as you say, get that brand recognition, right?
Well, the second email can become 3 if they turn those bullet points into questions.
Right.
Or right there alone, they can turn this 3-step into a 6-step. If they add a bump email to each of the steps as well, they just turned it into 12 emails.
Totally. Totally. So without further ado, let's talk. Let's turn off the screen share there for a second. Let's talk 3 takeaways from this. So what are 3 things that, based on what we just looked at, that we can tell our audience here to take away from this conversation?
Great challenge there, Jeff. I'd say the first is when you're emailing somebody cold for the first touch, these whole I hope, I love, I'm open to, free, all these sort of words, those aren't words you would tell a stranger on the street. Just take that language and kill it.
Kill the
I don't
pleasantries.
need to know that you love my company and that you'd love to meet me and death to all that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Would
get
that
real.
be the fluff, Bilal?
That's definitely the fluff. So get rid of all that nonsense.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Don't make statements. Again, you need to know if this person is even interested in what you're talking about. If you're making statements about your product and bullet point lists, you're missing the point. The point is to start a conversation, and conversations don't start with statements. They start with questions. How are you? Nice to meet you. Tell me about yourself. Right? It's the same thing with your product. What would you do differently if you could? How would it be if you had? What would it be like with, these are the things you want to turn your features into questions and ask those to your prospect. And I'd say that the third thing is with these call to actions, we saw some stuff getting lost in translation there. If if you don't think the person is the right contact, don't ask for a pilot. Right? If you're hitting them on the first touch, don't ask for a demo or a time to meet. They know how to hit reply. Nobody needs an explainer on it. Everybody knows that they can email you back. If you're sparking the right curiosity, they will engage, whether that's through multiple opens of an email or a direct response. You're going to see it.
Right on. Right on. No, thank you. That's those are awesome. So just for everybody listening, these we're going to be posting this after the show, like tomorrow, and we're going to be putting these key takeaways on online, so you can check them out. So on to the next one. So before we go on to the next one, any questions from the audience? Anything that anyone wants to know while we're taking a little break? Oh, Paulina says gold feedback. So that's even better than a question. Gold feedback, right on. So let's kick it into, how many phone calls with emails do you suggest? So I'll let you take that.
That's a great question. Who asked that one, by the way?
That was Paul.
Paul? Good question, Paul. That really depends on, so let's reframe the question for a second. Is there a right answer to that question? No, there isn't, because everybody's prospects are at a different level of getting bombarded. If I'm dealing with like CMOs of SaaS companies, those people get, I think there's like over 5,000 MarTech vendors or something stupid like that.
Oh,
Those people are just beat up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. They're just beat up. I mean, cold calling a CMO for a SaaS company is, you better be on your A game and on point and do it very judiciously, is the word I would use, because they get hounded.
Yeah.
And they are a very tough audience. If I'm, reaching out to CEOs of like light manufacturing companies. I don't know how beat up they are. I'd imagine it's not like a CMO of a SaaS company, you know, and in that case, I would use the phone a lot more, because if I can get a conversation with them, that's going to go pretty well. Like I sold into healthcare, and we would sell to medical directors, and these people they're not beat up. Like they don't get a ton of outbound.
Yeah.
And so we were extremely effective on calls, because as soon as we can get them on a call with a pretty decent call script, we were able to get 15, 20 minutes of conversation with them. So
Yeah.
I would say it depends on how beat up your prospects are, is how many times you want to throw the phone in there, and know that you could use your emails to decide who to call. Because if we're doing this 4 or 5 touches and we're seeing a particular set of prospects open up the emails more than others, those are the ones you probably want to stack more calls on than the ones who aren't opening the emails at all.
Totally. No, and if I could just add to that as well, is that I'm going to say to what you're saying about it depends, is that I really do believe in testing. So, add a couple calls in here, see if it works. Remove some, add more, whichever. Just do it until you have kind of confidence in knowing what that right number of touches is when it comes to phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And let me add this too, just because it's an add-on to the question. When I do calls, I leave voicemails. I know there's a whole set of people that say don't leave voicemails, and I totally agree. Voicemails are kind of dead. I don't use voicemails to get a response. I use voicemails to create my 7 touches of brand recognition. So my voicemail to those prospects would literally be one of those questions that's currently a bullet point. So remember we had the one where it's like snoop on your competitors. My voicemail would be like, "Hey Jeff, Bilal calling from XYZ. Just wondering if you're able to snoop on your competitors' influencer marketing ad campaigns today."
Yeah.
And that's it. That'd be my voicemail, and I'd hang up. I wouldn't even give you a callback number.
Right.
Right. I might say something like, "There's an email in your inbox regarding it. Take care."
Right.
It's literally less than 10 seconds, and it's just a repeat of what you read in the email.
Like, hey, Mr. Customer, you don't have to do anything. I'm just giving you some advice, or I'm just like, I'm telling my story, right?
Yep. Yeah. You just repeat the juiciest line from your cold email in the voicemail, and then you hang up. That's it.
That's awesome. And Beth asks, would you connect with a prospect on LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, all day, every day.
Absolutely.
All day, every day. Yeah.
And well, hold on. I get too excited here. Is your customer on LinkedIn?
Yeah.
If they are, then yeah.
Yeah. You totally should.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. Thanks for the questions. So we'll step into the next one now. So this second submission is a tech company from Ireland. What they're known for is shredding the time it takes to read and process massive proposals. So this is in a prospecting stage, and they're asking for a 25-minute demo, 11 touch sales sequence, including 5 emails, 4 calls, 2 LinkedIn touches. And they're getting a 38% open rate for the whole sequence, and an average about 1.7 to 3.5% reply rate per email.
Oh.
Okay, so I know a lot to think of here.
Good open, bad response. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so let's get started.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's, how clear do you need it on why they get such a great open rate? It's such a weird, unusual number. 67 hours per proposal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so specific, and it's like, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I called, right? The connect and sell famous opening cold line. It's such a weird, specific number that you're like, what? And, the fact that they have 7 out of the top 10 government contractors doing it is a really great social proof. It just all kind of falls apart after the bullet point list, where it's like, my sales colleague wants to sell you for 25 minutes. Can we meet this Thursday so he can sell you?
Yeah.
It's like, no, God, no.
No, thank you.
Like,
yeah,
there's got to be a better way to deliver that line than that. But it's a really short email. Even the bullet points are super, super concise and just, pretty simple.
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, again, we run into, again, the bullet points. And I think here it seems to kind of work a little bit, but something about it is turning people off, because this one is one of the ones that only got about 1.7% reply rate.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if the call to action was like, um, well, personally, I'll even say this, Jeff. I don't put call to actions in my first email. Not even like, would you be interested?
Yeah.
Like, I don't actually put anything because the response rate for first touch cold emails is so low. It's sort of, again, it's like a voicemail. Like, I don't expect anyone to call me back from it. So why would I leave my number? It
Right.
just doesn't happen. No matter how good my voicemail is.
Right.
So my first email is only there to set up my second and third email. It's not there to win the day, right?
It's
Like,
the assist, it's not the goal.
yeah, it's
Right.
just step one. Like, if you got to climb a mountain, you go to base camp,
Yeah.
right? And then you go through stage one, and then you go up stage two, and then eventually you reach the top of the mountain. But you don't just show up at the bottom of the mountain and be like, I'm gonna climb. That's not how it works.
No.
So I think they can build upon this. If they just sent this email, cut out they don't even really need, personalized sentence here. Sure, if you can throw it in. If they cut out that whole my sales colleague part and just let the email be like that, and just be like, it could be something as simple as like, how much time do you think you could save? And that was it. And
Right.
no call to action. Again, it's like, I don't know, but this was a weird email. Like, it's kind of caught me off guard.
Yeah. Or even something as simple as like, how much time are you spending on your proposals? You
Yeah.
know, how much
Yeah.
time are you spending on this specific aspect that, our solution helps with? Because maybe they don't even think about that. Maybe it's just like, hey, it's my job to do this. I just do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
I looked at it as a big ask too. I mean, it's funny. I remember even asking people for a 60-minute demo back in the day, and it was like, okay, that's just normal. Now I look at 25 minutes and think that's a big ask.
A big ask. Big
It's
ask.
huge, right? We've never met before, but I want to take a half hour of your time in the middle of your day, right?
Right. And look, he's open tomorrow. He's eager to sell you. He's ready to go. I'm sure, like, come on, who the hell has, at least push it on like next in the next couple weeks, but like literally tomorrow. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Jeff, you free tomorrow? Because we'd love to sell the hell out of you tomorrow. We're ready.
Right.
Also, you
Buy
highlighted.
whatever you're selling tomorroll. That's
Yeah.
pure coincidence.
No, thank you. And you highlighted the link, which is a great call. I don't put links in the first 3 to 4 touches because I want to be a safe sender. I don't want to get flagged in spam. And even if it's a link to my company blog, with the amount of emails the typical seller sends out, a portion of them are going to get marked spam, no matter what you write in them, no matter how pithy and intelligent you are about it. And putting links just hurts your chances of getting out of the spam folder. Doesn't help. So you could save it for another touch, but not in the first.
For sure, for sure. So there's one more thing I'd like to point out before we go to the next one is that this is my personal opinion, but if you're going to use personalization, I'd prefer to see that kind of at the top. So show them that you understand them and their needs and their problems, and what's the world around them. That's where kind of, in my opinion, that personalization should go to the top. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if they've got a nice personalized sentence that they can put in there from compelling sales intel, yeah, open with that. Well, that's a great opener.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, email 2. So this one is all about shredding time and becoming more compliant.
This is a very strong email. Again, it's a very weird, unique number, 9.8%. I get why they're getting a 38% open rate. It's so specific and so unusual.
Yeah.
People are just curious by it. I'd even not answer what 9.8% was right in the first sentence. Maybe just be like, find a way to tease that in, because you give the steak and the sizzle right there in the preview line. before the email even gets into it. But again, it's the same call to action, which is probably turning people off.
Yeah.
Nobody, what's a no strings attached web demo? Like that's an oxymoron. That's not true. That doesn't exist. I don't know
I'm not
anybody.
going to accept your money. Even if you give me the money, I'm not going to accept.
Yeah. It sounds like a timeshare pitch where it's like, no, just come in and you're fine. Like, no, I'm not. This is a pitch. You know it and I know it.
Oh man. Well, so surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, this email has a 1.4% reply rate.
Yeah.
This would
Yeah.
have been on the lowest of the range.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm sure it has a good open. What's the open rate for this one with that weird subject line?
You know what? The open rate on this one was, I think, 22%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, 1 out of 5.
Yeah, it's slightly above the industry average for this customer. So yeah, I think your open rate isn't the problem. It's more about when you get into the email, that's when you need to kind of optimize a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that realistically, like the one thing that I would say about this email is that it tells a lot about the solution, but it kind of lacks context. So it's missing the story behind it, you know?
It is. Well, they try to put it into the use case, click here to see the use case, but people don't like to, just tell me what it is right in the email. Don't make me have to click something else and go into it. And that call to action. So like, okay, let me shit a little bit on links for half a second here. Sorry, definitely just, because we got 14 people in here that are pro sellers that have taken time of their day to perfect their craft.
Yeah.
What's the point of links, guys? Like, you can tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. Feel free to completely disagree with me. I'd like to hear an opposing view. What's the point of links? Like, we're trying to get a time with them. We're trying to, well, what are we trying to even do before that? We're just trying to see if they're even interested. Are you like, do you have a beat? Like, are you interested in this? Do you even care what I'm talking about? Because that's the first thing I need to identify. Second thing I need to identify, are you the right person to care about it? And then third thing I need to be like, okay, then would you be willing to talk about it? So those are like the 3 things I need to figure out. Right. What's a link doing for any of those 3 things other than taking them somewhere else? Like I'm sort of adding another thing for them to do. And quite frankly, with the amount of cold emails people get, why would we want to add another thing to do? Like, can't my email just be sufficient on its own if the copy is right and the people are interested and I'm emailing the right person? That should be enough. Links typically go to product marketing, usually. And that product marketing is much better for people who have already expressed interest. And now you're trying to justify to them why they should take that interest into a stage of like evaluation. So your email is supposed to be the thing that gets them interested, not product marketing. The product marketing is in a justification to go from interested to evaluation, right? To give them, to arm them with something to sell internally.
So, so Bilal, if I can understand what you're saying, then is if you're looking at the sales funnel and you're talking about the top of the funnel is when you're trying to get interest to get people in the funnel, then links aren't as appropriate. But when they're in the funnel now, they are interested in the solution, and now you're trying to validate it. You're trying to tell that conversation through links, through downloads, through different kind of media.
That's right. That's right. And if we go back to like the universal buyer's journey, which anybody who's seen my content on LinkedIn, I talk about a lot. It's 5 stages to buy anything, whether it's like a stick of gum, a house, a piece of software. You go unaware, aware, interest, evaluation, decision. We are cold emailing people who are unaware or who might be aware of our product. But what we're really trying to do is figure out, can we take people from unaware or maybe slightly aware into the stage of interest?
Right.
Those links and product marketing, all that stuff are really great to take people who are interested into the mode of evaluation and decision. So they just don't seem appropriate. They don't really help your cause anyways. I don't know what the stats are, Jeff, on like click-through rates for or like links in general for cold emails, but I imagine they're about as dismal as response.
They're not high. I mean, you're more likely to get you're more likely to get a reply than a link click, because people just aren't really looking at cold emails and clicking around or whatever.
Yeah. So, it probably muddies a little bit your call to action when you're asking them to, you're giving a way to click and then a way just to response. You just want the response anyways. Them clicking around doesn't necessarily help. So I'd say, whatever is in that use case that this seller thought was appropriate for this email, to your point, Jeff, about lacking the story or content, should probably be somewhere in this email. And these really this is the second bullet point list. So like, okay, if you want to do one bullet point list in your cold sequence, that's fine. But if every one of your cold touches has a bullet point list, you're doing it wrong. Even if they're short, and I'd cut those out and use whatever's in that use case and put it into where those bullet points are. Because you already did one bullet point list, so that's it. You got your one bullet point list pass done. You cannot use it again.
Okay, well, I'm going to show you the last one now. And so this is, there's other emails, but just in the interest of time, we're going to cover one more email, and then we're going to go through key takeaways for the day. Here we go.
Yeah, so this is where, well, let's back this up for our 14 guests. I love, it's awesome when I save money. I can't stand wasting money. I mean, it's super cool when I find a way to save some time in traffic. I hate wasting my time in traffic. Right?
Yeah.
It's great that this company was able to save 62 hours, win more bids, and save. But the inverse of that is like excruciating. Imagine wasting 67 hours, losing the money on the table of what 9.8% of bids means, and not being able to have $528,000 a year to spend.
So you're flipping it to problem centric as opposed to solution centric.
Yeah. I think this email would do wonders if it did that, because and I don't know how they're going to tie in the LinkedIn add personal note to prospect to those bullet points. I'm guessing they're probably not.
Yeah.
And maybe they're finding a way to tie it in, but don't just add a personal note for the sake of it if you're not going to tie it into the thing. But there's probably a way to flip these bullet points into save, win, save, which just screams to me. It makes the skeptic in my head yell bullshit.
Right.
Because it sounds like a Geico ad, and I'm just like, I'm really good at ignoring Geico ads. Like, I'm like world class. You should see me on YouTube, man. I'm like trigger happy on that like skip button,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Even again, I'll go back to my daughter. She's so good at it. She literally goes like this on the phone.
Yeah.
Wait, skip.
Yeah. When it makes me wait 5 seconds, when it's at 3, I'm like already hitting it. Like as soon as I'm gone.
Yeah.
Because I don't care. I'm skeptical. But if you tell me, you could be wasting time that you don't need to, doesn't it suck when you're buried neck deep in a proposal?
Yeah.
We found that people end up wasting 67 hours per proposal that they don't have to. And, it'd be like literally like wars have been won in less time. You make it kind of funny, like literally like, the stock market has like crashed and rebounded faster than that. And people are just like, yeah, you're right. That's insane. Why would I don't want to waste 67 hours of my life if I don't have to.
Yeah.
Right? So tell me how I'm wasting my time. Don't tell me how you're going to save me, because and I had mentioned this in the comments, Jeff, of the first exercise we did, the first session.
Yeah.
When you say how you save and help people win, you're the hero.
Right.
But when you tell others how they're wasting time, you're pointing to a problem, and you're going to give them a magic sword to help them slay that dragon. They become the hero.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. Don't be the hero. Let the prospect be the hero. Let them find a way to stop wasting their time. Don't try to help save them.
I love that. I love that. So then, so one thing I'm going to just practically, I'm going to point out two things on here that I think, or one real big thing that I think probably helped them get the best response rate out of this email. So this is the one that they got the most reply rate. So where the top of that range is the 3.5%. And I honestly think that the biggest difference between the other two emails, and you'll probably see this too, Bilal, is that in the 25-minute web demo, they're talking about providing some valuable intel, right? They're basically saying in this 25 minutes, you're going to get value even if you're not the person who's going to buy.
Yeah.
I think that's the one thing that I could see that's different about the other ones that probably doubled their response rate.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I love it. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let's chat. So I wrote down 3 things that you said that are good takeaways from this email, okay? So I'm going to say there's no call to action in the first touch, okay? In fact, you even advocate that you don't do it for the first few. So no links, no nothing. Focus on the problem, not the solution. So really turn that save 67 hours into stop wasting 67 hours, right? And as part of that, just to go a little bit deeper in what you said, is that you want to provide context. Don't just say stop wasting 67 hours. Tell them what they're wasting. Tell them how they're wasting that 67 hours, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then, you know what, the third one, actually, this is let them be the star. This is my favorite one personally. I don't want to be the hero of my prospects world. I want them to be the hero, right? And if you're selling like that, where you want to be the star, then you're going to run into some issues. But let them be the star, as you said, give them the sword to slay their dragons, and they're going to probably be more likely to buy.
Totally.
So, but besides that, is there anything else that I missed there?
No, I think you got it, Jeff. And that's the big difference between the first and second email. It just shows you there's a lot of ways to win this game. There's a lot of ways to lose it too. But luckily there's a lot of ways to win. And the first emails that we saw from the first company could be much more challenger of like, what would you do if you could snoop on your competitors' ads? Right. And they didn't need all the flashy numbers and all that kind of stuff because the idea itself is provocative and interesting.
Right.
The second email, the second company does need to really explain why the heck I need a, software proposal or like proposal tool, RFP proposal tool, because it's not evidently clear why I would need that. And
right.
they can show some really big numbers for it. But the reality is that the reader of that email doesn't need to know how much time they're going to save because it's just going to make them skeptical. They need to know why what they're doing right now is silly and wasting their time.
Right.
And how there's a better way, because nobody wants to be the guy riding a horse while everybody's got a car. You know what I mean? Like
totally don't get left behind, man. Don't get left behind. No, that's awesome. Well, yeah, Bilal, thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna do a quick outro here, but is there anything you'd like to last bits of tips or anything like that for our audience before we go for today?
No, I think, this is really great. These are some great examples, Jeff. And I think I love this thing. I'm going to keep coming as an attendee. Hopefully you'll have me again as a co-host, but I love this. This is really fun for me. And I think, as you guys send your emails, just constantly ask yourself, what's it like for the reader in their head? Just get that mindset going, because, you'll find yourself using the loves and the frees and the hopes and all these words, and you'll realize it just sounds so silly if you were the person on the other end reading that. You're not really sparking a conversation in my head. You're just making statements. So I think, that's a really big, hard shift to make. And if you guys can make it, you'll find a lot of success.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. And so just to everybody listening at home, just want to let you know that we really welcome you to send in your stuff, send in your submissions for the next sequence practice. We're doing this every 2 weeks for the foreseeable future. So get in quick while you got the stage. And who knows, maybe it'll be Bilal again joining me to tear down the sequences. So Yeah, again, bud, thanks again for joining me, and thanks for everybody for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeff. Take care. Have a great day.